Hello and welcome to the podcast where sorry, we're going to be talking about PirateSoftware and Dr.K. I don't know if he has a longer name than that, but they had a conversation. If you don't know, Dr.K is like a psychiatrist or something. I never watched his stuff, but he's HealthyGamerGG on YouTube. And he kind of does like a lot of mental health stuff. He's a licensed doctor in the US. That's the USA. And yeah, so PirateSoftware is a dude who had a controversy that happened, I wanted to say recently, but it was 100 days ago, exactly, I guess. He kept saying that in the video, over 100 days ago, this controversy happened, and it just spiraled out of control, dude. Yeah, that's basically like all he kind of that's all he says in the beginning of the video. I watched the entire like 3.5 hour video that they did together, and it was pretty interesting. I've got timestamps. We're gonna go through the video that way. I will also say, like, please watch it yourself if you're interested. I think it could be very beneficial for a lot of people, just because it talks a lot about arguments. It talks a lot about how people look at things objectively, looking at things from a less emotional point of view and a more like, I'm a logical, objective, smart person. And there are a few things that I noticed about Thor that I think Dr. K didn't really want to say in the way that I'll probably say it, just because, like, you know, they're friends. He wants to reach him, and he has to reach him, like, you know, meet him where he's at. And it's like the XQC video. I don't expect anyone to watch this video that I'm making right here, right now, but I'm just here to sort of like go through it and talk about what I think of a lot of what he said. But I do want to start the video off by saying, guys, that the backlash that Thor, PirateSoftware, has received, yes, his name is Thor. I cannot believe I'm going to be referring to him as Thor today, but I think that's a lot easier to say than PirateSoftware, and it's like, ugh. Okay, so the backlash he has been receiving and continuing to receive is 1000% like ridiculous. Like, he does not deserve to be harassed, doxxed, swatted, fucking had like weird phone calls to his house, people threatening him. You know, I get that a lot of the time. People are like, oh, you know, telling someone to kill themselves, it's like, hey, welcome to the internet, right? That's not normal. And as Dr. K says, the snowflake does not think it's responsible for the avalanche, which I thought was a really cool little analogy. Yeah, I thought it was a cool analogy. I liked it. And you know, it's true. It's people don't really look at the situation and consider all the things that Thor is probably receiving, all the psychological sort of torture. I mean, torture is probably not a great way to say it, but yeah. But I will say as well that I can see why there are reasons that people are still upset with him, and I am probably going to equate a lot of what's going on to how you would, or how you should, treat like a partner. And the reason why I do that is because I feel like I didn't really start learning how to properly communicate with people in a healthy way until I started being in a long-term relationship. Because when you spend every single day with somebody, when you have, like, you're bound to have problems here and there, right? And it's super important that you don't get, what's the word? God, I could really use a co-host at this moment. Resentment. Yeah, you don't want resentment, right? And resentment builds, it's very simple. Resentment builds when you do not resolve a situation. And something we gotta remember too in our relationships is that not every situation has a resolution. What is really important at the end of the day is that we recognize when we hurt people, and we sincerely apologize, and apologize in the correct way. Because yes, there is a way to apologize that is the correct, like, satisfactory way, and then there's a way to apologize which leaves people feeling not like the situation is resolved, right? And I think that's kind of what's happened here with the PirateSoftware situation with the World of Warcraft thing where he roached the dungeon or whatever the fuck. At the end of the day, though, I just want to make it as clear as possible. It is ridiculous to be sending him threats and doxing him. Like, it is a complete... It's a complete overreaction, guys. Like, come on. And I know you guys probably didn't have anything to do with it because I was actually reading Thor's most latest video, which he just released like 7 hours ago, talking about a bunch of different allegations that people... Oh yeah, so since this whole situation arose, people started accusing him of being a pedophile or something, because when he was 19, he was friends with a 17-year-old, and they're still friends to this day, even though they're like, they're 40 years old and stuff. Ugh. So there is a lot of craziness, but I do feel like things might be a little bit better if Thor was doing a better job at avoiding that stuff. But I get that the way he has his community centered is that he wants to have a community where he can talk to people and you can have like discussions about things, and that becomes problematic because when your chat is going to be filled with all these people who are being pretty mean, yeah, it makes everything very stuffed up. But before we get into the video, the first timestamp, Dr.K said that the goal of this meeting was to add some compassion to Thor's side, but also to help Thor understand this gap between his actions and then the receiving end of all the hate, and that there is a gap in between all of that Thor isn't understanding, that there's a fundamental way that he communicates that rubs people the wrong way, which is a really nice way to say that you're bad at communicating. In my opinion, that's what I think it is. And, you know, it's hard to get better at communicating, but anyway, let's get started with the video. Let me just full screen it, and we'll go over to YouTube. So yeah, I was already at the end here, and there's kind of like an end part here where Dr. K starts talking about like maybe some concepts he glossed over, where he was talking about missing information or something, where sometimes people recount situations and they don't really say everything, and I don't think that's to intentionally leave things out. I don't think that's a vicious thing that people do. It's just something that people do, right? And it can happen to anyone. We all make mistakes. So our first timestamp is at 1618, where we get into the beginning of the WoW drama. So this is going to give some context to you people who maybe don't know so much.
Excellent. You're both low
they're
as
having
usual.
audio difficulties.
Okay, cool. Thank you, chat. I don't know. I think he sounds buttery smooth, dude. Like
that's super funny.
Okay.
Yeah, so this whole thing started with like World of Warcraft Classic back in January. And as part of this thing called OnlyFangs, and you kind of meme around, you make characters, but it's hardcore, so if your character dies, you lose it forever. But it's a character in a video game, right? So we're doing this dungeon, and the call was made to run, but it's kind of before that. Is we did the dungeon before that in a group, and we failed. And it was like, oh shit, everybody's running, everyone's freaking out, and we all made it out alive on that one. So we decided to go back in. Probably shouldn't have done that. When you have a group that falls apart like that, you probably shouldn't do it again. But we went back in, and on this one, a poll was made that was way too big. We weren't ready for it, and then all of us fucked up. Like every single one of us did, including me. And I talked about it online for it. But there was a pinnacle moment where one of the guys said, run, run, run. So we all ran, because you're letting a guy be a shot caller. And then as I ran, he goes, why are you running, to me? And I'm like,
yeah, so I don't remember the situation too well, but whoever said like run, and then someone else said, why are you running? Like, this is like something that comes up in the video later on, is that I do think that he is technically right for how he did things, but I think what people are most upset about, and continue to be upset about 100 days later, which is pretty crazy for internet drama, because usually internet drama, it just blows over. You know, you take a week and you come back and it's fine. You know, I experienced that personally with the XQC video. It blew over, you know, it wasn't really that big of a deal. And it's interesting to think about how things worked out so differently for Thor in comparison to so many other people who've had internet dramas. And I think it is really interesting to go over why has this continued on for so long? And I think we'll get to it, you know?
Could be a dick right now and be like, you told us to run, right? I could just like reflect that, be like, what are you talking about? Like, you did that. And I was like, what do you want me to do for you? Right. And I said, what do you want me to do for you? Look at my mana. Because it was mostly out of mana, but I had resources that I could have done for it. And I tried to make like kind of a light of the situation, and I was mostly irritated. It was an irritation response, not like a real accurate response. And it
okay, this is something I didn't really recognize before when I was listening to it, but he's listing off his responses as like, that was an irritation response. That was not an accurate response. That was me being irritated and then lashing out. Which is like, he knows kind of like what he did, and like I think he knows vaguely like, oh yeah, I guess I was in the wrong there, you know, but everyone else was in the wrong too, so I don't deserve this much hate, but everyone else was in the wrong. But it's interesting how much he intellectualizes his emotions, and he is, I'm getting ahead of myself, but he is so far attached from his emotions. It's wild.
Turned into this massive meme, and there's people in chat getting banned for it right now even. So for over 100 days now, these people that spam mana gem and you're out of resources and run away from your friends and all this kind of shit. And the thing that's crazy about that is, tying back into the ferret stuff, is when Ghost died, my YouTube got littered with comments saying Ghost died because she was out of mana.
Oh my god.
That's the
like, that is insane though. Like, I have to make that as clear as possible to y'all. His fucking ferret died, and everyone was, well, people were saying like, oh, she ran out of mana so she died. Like, one, that's not even factual to like video game logic, but two, that is so inhumane. You know, it's like, it is true. He keeps saying throughout the video that the hate he is getting is disproportionate to what happened, and what happened is they fucked up in a video game. And I just can't help but think that this would have blown over so much quicker, I think, if he didn't have this sort of like nonchalant attitude about it, right? Because I think at the heart of it, what was it, like 4 people, like 2 or 4 people lost their characters in hardcore WoW, and you know, he brushes it off saying like, oh, that's what happens, we say GG, let's go next. We keep going at it, even if we die, even if we fail, we keep at it. But that at its very core is a very dismissive way of approaching it, because people genuinely spend a lot of time leveling up those characters. It's a fucking grind. It sounds like absolute fucking torture. I don't know why the fuck people do it. I don't know. What comes to mind is the guy from the Da Vinci Code who's like whipping himself and like loves it. That's what I think about when I think about hardcore WoW. Anyway, so massively fucked up, I think, to just be like, whatever, that's just how it is. Like, get over it. That's a lot of like the attitude that I get from Thor, and I'm gonna be making a lot of, you know, opinions and like judgments. So, you know, this is just what I think, right? But again, doesn't deserve the hate he's getting. So he kind of explains it there, and then at 1928 he talks about being gish galloped.
We keep getting like these, basically I got gish galloped for a while, where it's like,
what does that mean?
Shitload of weird, gish gallop is like, I say a whole bunch of lies about you, and you can't respond fast enough, so it looks like they're true. Is basically the way that it felt. So it was like a whole bunch of like weird accusations all at the same time, as quickly as possible. And it's weird because when you fight against them, I found something that's really odd to me is I've never seen this before on the internet. Normally when you ignore stuff, it kind of goes away. You can't ignore things now. If you ignore something like that, people immediately think it's true. And when it's serious allegations like that, you have to respond. So immediately responded to it, shut it down. When I did that, there was a very large number of people who go, no one thought that was real anyway. And then there was a whole nother group of people that go, oh, you're fighting it, which means it's true. It's like,
yeah, so I think he's correct when it comes down to this, where when a situation occurs and you have people, you know, making all sorts of nonsense allegations, I think in today's day and age, you do kind of need to address this shit like ASAP. And it didn't used to be that way. I don't know what's changed with that, but yeah, people kind of just take your silence on things as an admission of guilt, right? And I don't know if people started doing that because maybe in their personal lives the people they know started doing that, and so now they equate that to like strangers on the internet. But yeah, it's very weird, and they to summarize, they were basically talking about how things have changed so much, and so many allegations came out about him. I mean, there was even one, I think if you came from like Destiny's community or like Asmongold's community, one of those places where people were saying he was cheating in video games, which I think it was also like single player games too, and it's like, dude, I do not give a fuck. But the whole reason that I think those cheating allegations came out, or like were being made up or whatever, I don't know the truth behind it, but the reason why those came out is because people are trying to take this dude, PirateSoftware, who has been elevated so high in just like the online and gaming communities. Like, I remember when he first started shooting up with shorts. God, that sounds so bad. When he started to first like rise and gain fame from that, I remember watching his shorts, and people in chat would come and send me videos, and I'd watch them on stream, and I'd be like, yeah, I mean, it's cool. It's a cool video, but the way that he presented himself, or just his general demeanor, like, yeah, I'll personally admit, like, I had a weird feeling about it. There was something about the way that he talks and presents himself, which comes off a certain way. And he has said in this video that he doesn't think that highly of himself. He thinks of himself as just being like kind of, he doesn't actually know what he thinks of himself. That's a really interesting part of this video, is that Dr.K asks him like, hey, like, what do you think of yourself? And he's like, I don't really think of myself. And he talks about how he doesn't actually think that highly of himself. God, I just said that a lot. And it's pretty interesting because his videos definitely come off a certain way, and even Dr.K says that. He says, you know, you come off in this way where it's like, I know that like what you're saying is probably like it's true or it's interesting or whatever, but it's just the way that you say it is just pissing me off. There's kind of a couple of funny moments about that. So yeah, that was one point. With that, now we go to the next timestamp.
I've certainly seen that there are people who I don't think people on the internet realize how much power they have to really like mess up someone. So there's this perception that, okay, if you're like successful or famous, that, I don't know if this makes sense. It's like almost like the things that you have going well in life are in the same HP pool as the psychological attacks, but that's not how it works, right? So like I can have a really, really, really strong biceps, but that doesn't protect me from like Hodgkin's lymphoma. Like it just, like the dimensions of a human being, and maybe people understand this, right? So like you can have some dimension of your life going well, and if some other dimension of your life like goes really, really bad, there's a certain amount of resilience that carries through with like the human body. But generally speaking, you know, having a great relationship doesn't make up for a toxic boss. It can help you withstand it. And I think the other big thing that people don't really appreciate is that, like, you know, when someone has an emotional thing that happened to them, like it sounds like you lost a ferret that you were very closely attached to and had sort of connected with, and when they kind of like attack you in that way, like that's very like hurtful.
Yep. And this is going to be controversial. When I was listening to this point about how, like, yeah, you can be like super privileged and you can have like a great thing going for you, but it made me think about, gosh, is it Pokimane? I think Pokimane was recently diagnosed with cancer, I think, and she made a video, or I'm pretty sure it was her, a video where she started crying in it and people were attacking her for it. And it's like, people are just going on like, oh, well, you're super wealthy, you're gonna be okay, you have access to like everything. And there's this resentment towards people who have some sort of like outward success, I would say. And I think the same is with PirateSoftware. People look at his channels, they look at how he has these businesses, his ferret business, and how successful he is. He has employees, he runs his own business, so he's basically like a CEO of his own shit. And you look at all the views he gets, the attention, and when something bad happens to him, you go like, oh, well, he'll deal with it because he's wealthy, I guess. Wealthy, quote unquote. We don't know his finances, but... Or he's wealthy in a different way. He's wealthy in internet attention. And I guess, like, I just don't understand that. I don't understand that. And, you know, it's almost like at the end of the day when someone gets to a point in life where they have this measured success, bad things, like, stop bothering them. It's like your success is so up here, and so that, like, something that would have originally been like that, it's now like, oh yeah, that's how people view it. And to me, that just seems like a really immature and frankly primitive mindset. I don't know how else to say it. It's like tell me you don't understand life without saying you don't understand life, or even people for that matter. It's really bizarre. Oh, okay, so the next one's 2259.
Like reasonable attacks are like, hey, I'm upset at you for like legitimate reasons. This is why I'm upset at you. And we go, okay, cool. We either resolve that or we don't resolve it, and we kind of go from there, right? And then
so he's describing when he gets confrontation, he says that there's two different sort of forms of confrontation for him. There's reasonable attacks where someone goes, hey, you did this thing and I didn't like it, and or something, or you hurt my feelings. He views that as like a reasonable attack, and then what's happening to him now is what he views as an unreasonable attack. And I had a huge fucking problem with the way he was describing this stuff, because I don't know how you can go through your life viewing every form of confrontation as an attack, because if you're viewing it as an attack, you're saying it's an attack on me as a person. And I don't know how you go through conflict resolution viewing everything as an attack. You know, like, I've had my own interpersonal conflicts and such, and it can definitely feel like you're being attacked. Like, your bodily response is like fight or flight, right? You get like nervous, you get panicky, because when someone comes to you and says to you like, hey, I've got to talk to you about this thing that you did, and you know, the way that it can be framed in a nicer way. So sometimes people make the mistake when confronting someone about something is to use language that does feel like an attack. But it is important for both parties to realize that the way that you communicate your problems is also another thing. Like, you're allowed to have your emotions, but the way you present that is important too. It's why we say, like, oh, you get angry, it's okay to be angry, but it's not okay to throw things. Because when you're throwing things, it's a sign that you do not have a handle on your emotions. Which I feel like I just ranted a bunch, but that was an interesting thing of his language that I sort of picked up from that, and I think is an important thing to keep in mind.
Unreasonable attacks, which I think that is an unreasonable attack, of like going in and be like, your ferret's out of mana, that's why it died. Like, that's designed to just it's designed to get in your head. It's designed to fuck you up. There's no someone trying to fix a scenario there. They just want to hurt you, right? And so I kind of package those in different ways, but yeah, no, they still hit you. There's no dodging that.
So what I'm kind of curious about, Thor, is like, so first of all, I don't think that what you're going through is, I guess, justified. I mean, it's not my place to judge, but also, like, you know, it sounds like what you did was, I'm still not quite sure. You made a snide comment and then ran away in a hardcore dungeon?
I love Dr.K's face here, because he's kind of like, I feel like he's a bit in disbelief by it. He's like, sorry, you did this thing in this video game and now people are like actually doxing your location and swatting you? The fuck? Like, that is such a, like, what is happening kind of moment. And oh yeah, I can't say it enough. It's such a weird situation, huh? Right, next time stamp. This is about Thor kind of like talking a bit about the person who started the drama.
The person who made the rude comment to me at the first place. It was like, why are you running? He ended up getting caught in some other drama with it that I don't even know what happened. And I stepped away from it because I was like,
again, another interesting sort of thing to add into the conversation. I know I'm kind of overanalyzing him a little bit in the beginning. It does get a little bit sparser later on in the video, but he's talking about like, oh yeah, the person who like called me out and started the drama, he got into a whole bunch of other drama which I don't even know about. To me, when he brings this up, it makes me think like, why are you bringing this up? If you don't know about that, you don't know if it's got any relevance. It feels like he's trying to go he's trying to characterize this other person as being like, oh, this guy gets into all sorts of fucking drama, so I just happened to be on the receiving end of like him being a dick or something, and then I responded in a way that I thought was, you know, equal in measure to this other douchebag, and then I got flack for it. Like, that is the vibe I'm getting here, is like a, you know, he started it, and he's a bad apple, so it's not my fault. Alright, we got this other one, which Dr.K makes a really interesting little note.
Does that make sense?
No, it was the fact that I was smug on the way out, because I made the comment that I made was made with a smug face, right? Because like at that point it was like the group had already wiped once, we were in the process of wiping again, and I'm like, dude, like everybody who's involved in this is screwing up. Why are you calling out just me specifically? I'm gonna make a smug comment in response, and then it turned into, this is just this guy's fault. It's just my fault. Shouldn't have made a smug comment for it. Know that, obviously. But the response for this to be 100 days of this and all these crazy allegations being made against me, doesn't make sense.
So you made you made the smug comment on stream?
Oh yeah, no, all this was live.
Okay, so this was live. And then was there some kind of aftermath? So usually when this stuff happens, it's like, if things go to Twitter, that's when people, I think, really dig themselves into a hole.
No, it didn't go to like I posted a post on Twitter saying, "Hey, this is all this stuff." I said in there like, "Hey, this, you know, everybody screwed up, including myself. This is everything that was going on," and that was that. And I have the post if we can go pull it up. Let me go grab it.
Yeah, so this is kind of, I think, where Dr. K starts to formulating an idea in his head of what's happening here with Thor and the other people, and where this disconnect might be between. And again, I'm never gonna say like, oh yeah, this is a justification for what's happening to him. No, it's not a justification, but I do think it's important to understand maybe like the way that we communicate and how that can come across and how that can cause people to act the way that they want to act. And I think at the heart of it, I think Thor just wants it to all be done, right? So yeah, him running away isn't what struck a nerve, but Dr. K is onto something else, whereas Thor thinks it was just simply him being like smug and making that like smug little comment as like his whole team's like fucking dying and he's just sort of like sitting there away. And you know, I've seen so many people break down the situation with the World of Warcraft thing, and I think some people were saying like, oh look, he did have enough mana to do like one thing, or he used like a key ability, but then he like immediately cancelled it, which completely wasted it. And so that there's like all these things about like, oh, you could have done this in the moment, you could have done this. Fuck, this is a fucking mess, but we gotta keep going through this. So next one's 34:55, and this one we're talking about yeah, Thor talking about the chat and how the comments bother him
just over and over again. See, they're just getting banned constantly. It's just like a constant stream of bans right now, and I knew that was going to happen.
How do you understand that?
How do I understand what?
Why that's happening so much?
What do you mean? I'm not sure I understand.
Yeah, how do you understand why people keep showing up? You're saying it's happening constantly, right? You're saying that
it happens if I talk about it. It happens if I don't talk about it. This is every day. It's just more right now because we're talking about it.
Right. So I understand that it happens every day. It sounds like it's like awful. I don't think you deserve this. At the same time, I think that if we want to, we can try to understand it. Is that interesting to you?
Sure. I mean, I think I do understand it. I think it's
what do you understand?
I think it's become a popular thing. I think that's really what it is. It's become kind of like a signpost on the internet, like, hey, stop by and do this thing because it's funny. And I get that. Like, I understand that. You know, it's because for a lot of these people, they've never engaged with their community before. They don't know who I am. They're not really interested in who I am. They just want to pop in and say a thing and then get banned. And that's it. Right. And some of
yeah, so a lot of like what he says is like the reason why he's receiving hate is because it became a really popular thing among content creators to like sort of talk about the situation, and because there were so many people talking about the situation, what ended up happening is just, you know, kept spiraling and amplifying, and people kept making more and more content about it, which meant this whole situation was becoming known to so many more different communities, and some content creators who hate him were encouraging their communities to attack him, which apparently people did say on their streams, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go harass him or something. Like, don't do that. That's fucking stupid. And so he says to Dr. K, like, yeah, I understand the situation. People are just like fucking, they just want to fucking do something stupid. They want my attention. And it's interesting that the whole time Dr. K is like, no, like forget about that aspect of things, and like let's talk about like you specifically. And I think at 44 we get to an interesting part where they're like, the amount of psychological punishment you are experiencing, I think, has been more than sufficient. People are going overboard. In fact, I would say at all points it's pretty overboard. And I think this is where we get started with actually trying to break it down for Thor. Like Dr. K being like, no, you don't get it. Here's what you need to get. On a
stream involving a hardcore raid does not warrant a death threat. That's my first axiom, okay? The second thing is that
I would hope so.
even if we think you're an asshole, that the amount of psychological punishment you are experiencing is, at this point, sufficient. So, I would encourage everyone who is watching this, listening to this, if shit gets clipped out of context, and because I think this could, go wahoonie-shaped real quick, please, if y'all are disseminating information about this conversation, please include this part, which is that we're all human beings who do the best, generally speaking, that we can. Do people make mistakes? Absolutely. Are you allowed to get mad at them? Absolutely. Should you do death threats? No. But also, I want everyone who is a hater on the internet to really stop for a second and think about what the hate does to you, right? Like, you're hurting another human being, but like, for what purpose? Like, I think it's just kind of, it doesn't make the world a better place. I know that in the moment you feel like, oh, I want to put someone in their place. Like, I'm like, he needs to be taught a lesson. He needs to be taught, he's like, oh my God, like, you did this. And like, and I understand that.
I'm going to pause it there for a second and say, yeah, 100%. I am totally someone who is at fault for doing stuff like this. And it's true. It's like when you see, like, it's very easy, especially on TikTok. You see, like, there's a creator and you can see them doing something that you think is kind of like controversial. It's kind of like, I've talked about TikTok content creators before and how I dislike them, and it is very interesting because you justify it in your mind when you leave comments being like, hey, you shouldn't do that. And I try to be as reasonable and as logical as I can when I disagree with the way someone does stuff, but like, for example, when I see videos of like mothers recording their toddlers misbehaving and, acting out and being like really, just as an example, I've commented stuff like, hey, you should get off your fucking phone and like do something about it. But when I look at it from like a more empathetic human level, because it's so easy to take that and be like, oh, you're a terrible mom or whatever, but there are so many variables that we don't see. There's so many things, and it's so easy to make a judgment based on like a small video. And it's like, yeah, okay, should she have not done that? No, she shouldn't have done that. She shouldn't have. But I understand that everyone has like their hard points in life. You don't know if she's getting any help with the kid. You don't know if they're a single parent. They're at their wit's end. They're having a moment where they're just like, I am so fucking out of my mind. I need someone to like. I need some validation here, or some fucking help. And they turn to like a bad thing, something that they shouldn't do. And we can just hope that these people learn from it, right? And that things get better from then on. It's why with like a lot of iPad kids these days, yes, it is a parenting issue, but also, holy fuck, how do you even be a parent in 2025 when you need like 5 fucking jobs just to make ends meet? Like, you can no longer be a McDonald's worker and just have a life, Who the fuck is working the McDonald's when all the teenagers are at school? Like, McDonald's, like, shit like that needs to be a livable wage because you realistically need adults there. Anyway, I'm getting like so ahead of myself with that.
Those feelings, I'm not even saying that those feelings are wrong. But also, like, I don't know how else to say this. Like, it's just a bit much. I don't think it's actually helpful in the long run. You guys are doing all this crap to Thor. It's not clear to me that he understands why you're doing it. Okay, and I think that's the first place where we're going to start. Does that make sense, Thor?
Yeah, no, I mean, like, I can understand being mad about it at the beginning. Like, I get it. Your favorite streamer's character died. Like, that's going to make you upset. I was smug about it at the time. I get it. I made a mistake in a dungeon. That dungeon didn't go well. Everyone, like, 2 people died. Like, I understand being angry then. I don't understand.
Yeah, so he says, I understand being angry then. Because so he does clearly understand, like, hey, your favorite streamer's character died, that you're probably watching someone you really like watching get kind of, like, fucked over in a way. I mean, I wouldn't say that it was entirely Thor's fault, obviously. And then he's saying, like, I don't understand why people are still upset about it. And I've got to say, the reason why people are still upset about it is because it is not resolved. And I think at this moment, you kind of have to think of the internet as being like your internet, like, girlfriend or boyfriend or something. I think you kind of just have to be like, okay, I'm going to apologize for my part in this. I'm going to tell you what I did wrong. And I'm going to be like, damn, I'm going to give a heartfelt apology. But later on, you'll see that Thor doesn't really jive with that.
Thousands, and I mean thousands of people, 100 days later, still on it. Like, that's really weird to me. That's not something I could get, right?
So this is going to be a little bit tricky. I'm wondering if there's some way that I'm going to play around with.
Right, so when we get to 51, 55, they had some technical difficulties once again over here, but I will skip to the part that gets us there. So Dr. K starts explaining the situation from, like, his perspective as, like, a psychiatrist, I guess, and what I explained earlier, the gap between your actions and then, like, the death threat. He pulls out the iPad. We love to see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I can understand that completely.
So, and then let's like toss in, like, there's another variable here which is like memeing. There's another variable here which is like momentum. There's another variable here which is like content creators hopping on, content reactions, right? So each of these things is an amplifying effect. Agreed?
Yeah, absolutely.
So let me ask you, in your gut, do you think that this plus these things is sufficient to explain, not say that it's justified, but explain what you are going through?
I don't think so, because I think the internet would have given up about it.
I completely agree. So I think there's a big variable.
It's too long-lived for that.
There's a big variable. You've tapped into something that people really don't like. Okay? So, and here's what I'm kind of hearing. So I'm going to just, like, write some things out here, okay? So these are just kind of things that you've said. And I wonder if this will, like, if something will click. Okay, so first thing is that there's death threats. That's bad.
Yeah.
There's banning a lot of people. There is ghost dying. There is
people, that wasn't even the first time that happened.
Trolling you about this.
Yeah.
There's people calling you a pedophile. There's someone's kid calling you whatever.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there was a video of someone's, like, little toddler or whatever saying, PirateSoftware is a roach or something. Crazy. What the fuck? I will say, I think a lot of people are enjoying, like, the meme aspect of this whole situation. Like, people love saying, like, did you know he worked at Blizzard for 7 years? I've been seeing that one a lot, which I do think is kind of funny, because there were a lot of videos in the beginning where he was starting off his videos like, I worked at Blizzard for 7 years, and back in Blizzard, what we would do is and then you pull out, like, the paint fucking window and you start, like, drawing fucking triangles and fucking squares, just like XQC. Brother.
Roach thing.
Okay. Right, and then the other thing is there's your, like, making sense of it. So there's, like, kind of this Gish Gallop. There's you said something about these people.
Oh my god, you know, I'm at 125 speed. My god, these people are slow.
Like ... Like, you know, these people are like why are they doing this? Like, you were talking about, like, what these people.
The best way that I put it is, it seems like some people think that they want to be a part of that because it's something that's, like, greater than themselves. Like, they're part of a story, they're part of a narrative. A lot of people that were engaging with OnlyFans stuff were seeing it as, like, being part of that, and they kept, there were some of them who kept coming back and saying, like, when are you going to jump back in and go and kill the people that called you out in that dungeon? And like they thought it was like a story, and they didn't really.
Yeah, I thought it was like a reality show or something, which I'm gonna say is probably happening because there are some YouTube groups out there that actually do like storyline what their streams are gonna be and what they're gonna do, which I don't know if I'm like a fan of that, to be honest. I really don't. I don't know who does it, but I can tell you there are people out there who are doing it, and people watch it and they go, oh, I guess a lot more streamers do that than I thought. And OnlyFans is the guild, the hardcore WoW guild or some shit, with all like the streamers and all that shit. Anyway, this is an interesting part where Thor is talking about how he doesn't particularly like doing conflict resolution with young people.
Worse at that, obviously. That's something I think that you.
And he was just saying about how when he was younger, he was really bad at communicating, which I'm gonna say I don't know if a lot has changed.
You learn over time is like how to conflict resolve in a way that is sane, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. So is sane.
When I say is sane, I mean more like conflict resolve based on things that are provable or not provable, not
right.
just gut feelings.
I'm with you. And how does that work out?
Well, when I'm talking to people who are older, it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. I find that there's very few people that are younger that can have conversations like that. There are still ones that will. But I find like usually people past their mid-20s is when they start to be able to do conflict resolution better.
Okay.
And want more of a trust but verify kind of approach, which is like, I trust that you're telling the truth from your perspective, but I need to verify your claim before I get mad.
I trust that you're telling the truth from your perspective, but I need to verify your claim before I get mad? I don't know. It's like a lot of what he says here is like, okay, well, can you like speak a bit more on like specifically about what you're talking about? Because at this point in time, I don't know how he views like conflict resolution if everything is to do with verifying claims and evidence support or evidence-based stuff. Like, has he ever had someone just say like, oh, well, the way that you were talking to me, kind of made me feel like not good, or you said something to me that didn't make me feel good. It's like, is he the type of person to sorry, my cat. Is he the type of person to be like, oh, I said something mean to you? Well, tell me the date and the fucking time exactly, and then you're gonna tell me, like, on the off chance you actually do have receipts, he's gonna be like, that didn't happen. That's like my speculation, but speaking from someone who's dealt with stuff like that before, oh my god. I hate people like that. I really do. And if he's that type of person, then like I can tell we would not get along. But he could just be talking about like people who make claims, like verifiable claims. But it's hard to know because he doesn't really say much more about that.
Right.
Okay. So I want you to just, like, we're going to tunnel down into that for a second, okay? So let me just understand this. So, like, people who, your method of conflict resolution sounds super reasonable, right? It's like, if you've got proof, then you push forward. If you don't have proof, you kind of let things go. And then when I ask you, how does that work? And you're like, well, if people are mature, it works great. But if it doesn't work for them, they're immature.
I wouldn't say they're immature.
I know you wouldn't say that. I'm using that word. You use the word young. But I think the implication of that is that there's like a value judgment on people who that works for, and a value judgment on people who that doesn't work for.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, no, I absolutely do a value judgment. Like when somebody comes in and goes, you're this, this, and this. And I go, no, I'm not. And they're like, and then they just spew a bunch of vitriol. I just ban them, right? Like that value.
Okay, so someone comes in and makes claims that like, you're this, this, and this, and he's like, no, I'm not. Then they just get banned. I mean, like, I would be more interested to talk more about like personal stuff than like internet shit, because like, yeah, anyone's gonna come into your chat and just start saying shit. Like, people just do that. There's no barriers for entry there. So I don't really understand this part.
The judgment at that point is like, okay, this is a person that is not able to have a normal conversation. They don't want to have a normal conversation. They just
people aren't normally like that.
Garbage. They don't care what's true. They just want to fight about it. And then I don't want them here, right? And that's where I do that kind of evaluation of like, are you cool enough to, like, are cool-headed enough to have a conversation, or do you just want to shout what you saw on Reddit? You know, that's really what that is.
So what is, so this is the trolling that you receive is fine, but for the people who got upset with you, what is your understanding of the most rational reasons why people got upset with you? Let's forget about the trolls for a second. Huh?
100%. It's because I was smug, right?
What does that mean?
It means that in this situation, in that moment, it appeared that I didn't feel remorse. And
I had a problem with this because, again, it's kind of like gaslighting in a way. I know we throw that around a lot because a lot of people do it, intentionally or unintentionally. Was saying that, like, oh, it appeared that I was a certain way. So people are upset with me because of something that they perceived, which I'm going to say is wrong. Your perception of me is incorrect, which I have to say is him trying to be logical when it comes to a situation that is emotional, right? And you just can't argue away people's emotions. And I would say that he was smug and he was not remorseful in that situation. I mean, I can say that from my opinion. He was not remorseful. The fact that in that situation he was more preoccupied with hitting back, clapping back at this like kid who's like, "Why are you running? Why are you running? Come back, we can do it." He was more preoccupied with clapping back. And so that really does communicate to us that no, I don't think he gave a fuck about what was happening. In that moment, someone was challenging you and your decision making, which I feel like, in my opinion, he cannot let that go. And I think that's also why he brought up that kid being in some other drama that he doesn't know about. So, yeah. Alright.
People thought that I didn't apologize. They thought that I didn't care. They thought that I...
People thought they didn't apologize. He did not apologize. We look at the tweet later on in the video. Oh, we might have already gone past it, but the apology that he wrote, it was not an apology. Let's look it up. PirateSoftware apology. And I think it's on Twitter. Or X. Well. I don't know. Wow, I feel like it's actually gonna be hard to find. Shit. Who knows? Yeah, but the apology was basically, he reasons it as like, oh, I was just trying to provide context to the whole situation, and I just think that when... Oh, what is this? Anti-Semitism? The fuck? Oh, no. Okay, I can't find the apology right now, so... Yikes. What sports skater? Does this provide the apology? So incredibly toxic. Alright.
I wanted those characters to die or some weird shit with that, but no one stopped to actually ask me. They just saw the clips out of context that made it look like I was a big villain, right? And like, I get that, but if you want to talk about that stuff, if you want to believe that, you should probably just come ask me.
So hold on a second.
Talk about it.
How do you know that they formed their opinions based on the clips?
Oh, okay, I found it. Okay, so the OnlyFans stuff actually sucks. Shit, do I put this on the main screen? Let me see if I can do this. Alright, so he says, this OnlyFans stuff actually sucks. Lots of weird attack posts and people taking it too far. Putting everything in one place and washing my hands of it after this. This, by the way, I'm sure he's referring to as the apology. Yeah. To start, here is the response about the Diamol run. From my perspective, I didn't feel I could save anyone else with the resources I had left, even with the mana gem and rope cooldowns. Since the call to run was made, I followed the call and got out as quickly as possible. In every other instance where shit has hit the fan, the shot caller has called specific targets we locked in and nobody died. If you call run run run, then everything after that is a shit show. I mean, yeah, like I can imagine that when someone says, hey, let's run, fucking run, when I don't think in hardcore that's like normally, like I think you have to play so carefully that when you have to run, that shit is fucking like, you gotta fucking run. Because if you fucking aggro like all the mobs there, too many that you can handle, they chase for so long, probably do so much damage, the stakes are so high, So it is a high intense situation there. I will give him that. So Yamato, I think, is the guy who sort of was going, well, why are you running or something. He pinned the entire thing on me, PirateSoftware, despite everyone making mistakes, and this rapidly spiraled into attacks both on and offline. Yeah, I think there was like a couple of people in the group who were new to World of Warcraft or new to their roles or something. I don't know what this is referencing. Oh, wait, is this a whole other tweet? Yo, he made another tweet? Or is this the same one? Wait, what the fuck? Oh shit, what's this one? To those trying to character assassinate me online for a bad pull in Diamore, WoW hardcore. This is hardcore WoW, and a lot is on the line when you step foot into a dungeon. Here is a light breakdown of the last 24 hours. So this was, whoa. He's made 2 fucking giant posts about this? Oh, honey, no. Our party went the wrong way and overpulled multiple packs with the boss. The shot caller made the call to run, and then went back on that call. Ooh, really? Yeah, so I see like the problem there is that you might call to run out of a panic, and then the better choice might end up actually being like, oh fuck, we can, and we probably should take this because that will probably minimize the damage the most. But I do feel like once you call run and people are running, it's like, I don't think you're getting those people back in, because how silly and fucking stupid would you feel if you ran away and you were safe and then you go back in and you die? I can't tell you how many times that happened to me on League, where I would have gotten out, but I was a goody two shoes. I thought I could save like my fucking friend. Oh. During the run out, another pack was pulled as we had opted to skip it previously, which is never a good thing. Oh god. Why would you guys do that? Communication was completely broken throughout this, and it was our second time failing the dungeon. Everyone played poorly, and 2 people ultimately lost their characters for it. Oh, okay, so I said 4 earlier. It was 2. Still sad. Each person in this group made mistakes, including myself. I've never once said I was perfect in my play, nor that I was a god gamer. I'm just an ex-Blizzard employee. Oh no. This is why people are memeing on you, bro. I'm just an ex-Blizzard employee that has played Mage for a long time. Okay. To pin that on a single person is absurd at best, and if you're calling for death and cancellation over it, you're too invested in this content in a very unhealthy way. That's fair. Still not an apology. If you're a creator engaging in this kind of behavior, then eventually your content wave will end, but the relationship you've sullied will be permanent. Hope it was worth it for you. So basically being like, listen, if you made a video about me, judging me, I'm never gonna work with you because I hold grudges. Which is like fair, you know? I mean look, I was never expecting to work with PirateSoftware anyway, so I'm making this video, but I'm also hoping to be charitable to him too. I don't believe he's like a intentionally malicious person. I don't believe he's a guy who's like holier than thou. I don't think he actually thinks that of himself, but what I do think is that he's very disconnected from his emotions, his feelings. I think he views those as like a weakness, and I think that's why he is so dissociated from them. To those trying to defend me, blah blah blah, this will pass, yada yada, I'll keep going. Those will banned, it will stay so. I never liked that kind of knee-jerk reaction behavior in the community. A lot of what he's saying is just kind of like, I don't know, it's making me want to roll my eyes, to be honest. For those that don't understand why they will stay banned, we had a 10-hour-long hate raid over it live on Twitch. We had to ban nearly 4,000 accounts across all of them, and our moderators received death threats regularly throughout it. People called for me to be killed both in-game and out-of-game. Yeah, guys, let's not do that. Tried to get me banned from Twitch, the guild, and WoW. They tried to make disparaging comments about our ferret rescue, or that we somehow hurt animals. Again, that's so fucked up. They tried to spread rumors saying I was convicted of felonies and many other things. Yeah. Honestly, this was a pretty cringe post. This is not an apology in any fucking way. I don't even think he once ever said, I'm sorry. And I think when he's coming from the perspective of like, I'm right in that I was never in the wrong, or like I was never solely in the wrong. Oh my god, we're never gonna get through this, fuck's sake. Okay. So that was that tweet that he read. He's referencing another one down here. So let's go to the tweet that was I think 14 days after the one we just read. So this was the initial one. The next few days was just tens of thousands of messages berating me, sending death threats, doxing, and all kinds of shit. This happened on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Steam, oh yeah, Reddit, Discord, and over VoIP-initiated phone calls, all at the same time. Here are a few examples inside of WoW to give you some understanding. Okay, what's this? Receipts? I honestly don't need receipts to believe that people send you death threats. Don't leave your house because we have people waiting for you. What the fuck? It's so cringe. I'm gonna show you what it means to be a pirate, better hide your parents. What the fuck? When that guy kills it, I'm like, oh my god. I'm not gonna read that. Yeah, that is, and look, I think because, just purely because of that, like, concentrated hatred he's getting that's so foul. It's not funny, by the way. It's really not. I don't know how people... I'm sure a lot of those people are just saying it because they're edgy fucking 13-year-olds. Which is pretty fucking sad. But, yeah, it's not really funny. So, let's get a new comedy routine, guys. So, from that perspective, I understand why he's so focused on, like, the why am I getting so much fucking hate for this? Yeah, it's pretty bad. So what do you do in this situation? You start reporting it, banning. We took the 10,000 plus attack accounts, reported them. Wow, for organized hate raid. Disrupted the broadcast for the last 3 days, prevented the community. Yeah, it is a hate raid. Yeah, automation shut down the first message, last message shit stirring posts, which worked to mostly positive effect. Despite all this, I kept running with the guild and kept doing dungeons with people. Got my UBRS key. Had runs that were fun. Had some clutch moments as well. I don't care. Then during UBRS run, another creator in the group shit-talked me the entire run and spoke many times about wanting to start a fight with me over voice for content. That's gross. You should call them out because that is cringe as fuck. Okay, so they're gonna report anyone who does that. That's valid. That's what the report button is for, honestly. And if anyone calls you out for being like a pussy about it, then it's like, shut the fuck up. The idea that you shouldn't fight back or do anything to defend yourself is absurd. Yeah. Yeah, but again, I just don't think he would have got this hate in the first place if he just said something like what I said before. Defend yourself and report that kind of behavior. It doesn't matter what size creator you are. That doesn't belong in any of these platforms. I agree. This was posted as a content guild, which meant we were crafting stories and narratives around our characters and achievements, not content at any cost, which this has clearly become. Well, when you say that they were crafting stories and narratives, like, can you blame people for coming into a chat being like, oh, is this part of like the storyline is that these people lost their characters and blah 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 blah. Of course, the Kick CEO is yo, hey Kick CEO, yo. Those in the guild that reached out to me after all this. Okay, alright, well, there you have it.
Because they repeat verbatim the same message over and over again that we can only find on places like Livestream Fail.
Oh yeah, so this is where he was saying like, oh yeah, all the people hating on me are just Redditors who copy pasta everything, and you cannot reason with them and you cannot talk to them, which is probably pretty valid. Pretty valid, I would say. Alright, let's go to the next timestamp. 9:05:20.
Who in their right mind, when you say, yeah, the narrative that I'm creating is because I'm afraid for my physical well-being, like, yes. How is that challengeable?
It's not.
100%.
Yeah.
So I think what you are doing is something that is, I don't know what word to use, has a negative valence to it. You're doing something that's bad, and the way that you respond to it makes it unchallengeable. Like you're doing this thing over and over and over again.
Okay.
Right. So the way that you're
would be negative about that though.
What?
That's what I'm trying to understand. I said, what about that is negative?
That's a very excellent question. So now we get to something really interesting about human psychology. So if I'm pissed at you and you take away my reason to be pissed at you, what do?
You get pissed, more pissed.
Absolutely. So how?
Yeah, so like when you're having again interpersonal problems with your relationships and people in your lives, and they're pissed at you, and you go, oh well, you're not actually allowed to be pissed off at me because actually this is what happened, or actually I don't see a problem with the way that I'm treating you. So you're trying to take away that reasoning that they have to be pissed off at you, and that's invalidating them and their emotions. And you can roll your fucking eyes at that, but like you have to think about you and yourself. Like if you came to someone and said to them like, dude, you're making like fucking a shitty argument about something, and they say to you, fuck you, you're wrong about that because you're stupid. How are you gonna feel about that?
So you're saying that basically it's created a bunch of anger, and then by having a situation and talking about it and showing like, hey, this is what's going on, it's created a scenario where people are more angry because they don't have a vent. They don't have a way of getting it out.
That is where we're... Hold on, let me just fix this real quick.
They don't have a vent? Yeah.
Oh.
It's unresolved, like I keep saying.
Going quiet again, so I just jacked you up. So I think that is the first step to it, right? So there's something that there's something that people... Deflecting is maybe a good word. There's something that you're deflecting that then triggers people to like... Because they're not getting what they want from you. Does that make sense?
Yes. So
okay.
There's an alarm going off.
So now the question kind of becomes like, I don't know if this sort of makes sense, but I think when I hear your story, what I hear is, and this is what's so tricky about it, is like, I think everything you've said is logical because you kind of base things on sort of proof, right? But I'm noticing that like the way that you accept responsibility is like 1% of what your narrative is. So you say that you were smug.
He glosses over it.
Yeah.
Right?
I was super smug about it.
And I think that feels like a tiny, tiny, tiny part of your narrative.
I think it's only a tiny part of the narrative because it's the flashpoint. It's the moment that started, right?
Sure.
So it's hard to make that larger in the story. But yeah,
I think it sounds to me like, and like now I'm going to say something that's like, this isn't, I don't know what better word to say. I think it's not the flashpoint. I think it's the fuel.
Okay.
So
and sort of how we looked at those other tweets that we just read over. Again, I wouldn't say it's necessarily smugness. It's hard to really discern that from just like words on a screen. But again, no apologizing. It's no like, here's where I made faults. It's very focused on, this is the fallout that we've had to deal with. This is all the things we've had to do. This is all the stuff that I'm receiving. And he's bringing so much attention to how it has affected him. I don't think there's really like one mentioning of how the dungeon failing affected other people. And I do think that is the heart of the matter, which you can say is like immature, it's stupid, but it is the heart of the problem, really. That's what I think.
Like, I feel very steadfast in that opinion on that. I don't think this would have reached the audience that it did or become as large as it was on the internet without that.
So
you're talking...
Yeah, he's talking about like the content creators making videos about it.
For 100,000 viewers worth of people.
Yeah, so that I think is 100% true and is indicative of what the problem is, right? Because what happens, what I'm noticing that you're doing is like every step of the way, you made one tiny mistake. But the way that you are reacting, I don't think a fire can get this big without a content creator's interaction.
Also, you can tell me if I'm wrong with this take, but I was also thinking about this, and he says like, oh, this wouldn't have blown up, this is blown up so way out of proportion because content creators are making videos about it. And I was kind of thinking to myself like, well, if it's really not that interesting content, or if it's really like a whatever, it's just a mistake, it's just something that happened, if it really is as low-key as Thor is making it out to be, then I don't think it would have blown up, but I think the fact that it did blow up, yeah, sure, a lot of people are talking about it, but a lot of people are talking about it because it is an interesting showcasing of how we socialize and how that really can trigger a lot of people. And I'm sure the way he was acting, I'm sure it triggered the hell out of a lot of people. Very easily. I think that's why it blew up so much. His behavior, which he is responsible for.
And the way that you're responding to each of these situations is only fanning the flames. And I think, like, you're saying this, right? Like, you've tried everything. Like, you've tried
doing nothing.
You've tried doing nothing. You've tried doing everything. And nothing seems to be working, which I know seems like nothing is working. But if you are consistently getting the same result and you are altering certain variables in that equation, what that implies is that there's one variable that's not being altered.
Exactly. What could that be? I don't know, dude. So this is where he starts asking him like how he thinks of himself.
Hold on. Some people whoa. No, I don't agree with that.
No, I definitely do, because there are some that have messaged me with stuff like that. There are definitely people that felt that.
Yeah, I know they felt that.
All right, what are people feeling about it? I don't remember this part too well.
Nothing you're saying is incorrect, but I think everything you're saying is pretty incomplete. Right? So you're saying, like, okay, there's a parasocial aspect. You're completely right. Like, you're right about everything you're saying. I just think the main mistake, if you can call it that, the cognitive process that is really getting you in trouble is incompleteness. So
I don't understand.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I'm like 99% confident that this is going to be very hard. And I think this is why you're in this situation, because this is like, it's like, you're like, I don't know what the fuck is going on. I don't know. I've tried everything. What they're saying is just not true. The reason that I know that these people are not valid is because they copy pasta each other, right? Do you see how much?
No, I think that's not everyone, right? There are some people that are just upset because they saw me as like some pure holier than thou content creator, which that's not realistic. I'm a human being. I think hold on. There are some people that are,
whoa. No, I don't agree with that.
Yeah, so people think he's holier than thou, and I mean that's certainly the impression I got from his YouTube shorts, and I'm sure so many people, their first impression of him is the barrage of shorts featuring him on their YouTubes.
No, I definitely do, because there are some that have messaged me with stuff like that. There are definitely people that felt that.
Yeah, I know they felt that, but I don't think that you're an ordinary content creator. I don't think you're an ordinary human being. I think you're a superhuman being.
What?
Yeah. How do you think about yourself?
I don't know. I don't, generally.
I think therein lies another problem. Right? So if you don't think about, I know it's weird, like I'm sending you a lot of weird stuff. Right? So I think that if you don't think about yourself on a regular basis, the version of yourself that you will have on your mind that then projects out to the outside world is not going to be an ordinary human being. I think you project exceptionalism.
So he's saying that because you don't think about yourself too much or whatever, whatever you're projecting out in the world is going to be a little bit like unordinary? Okay.
I'm
not sure I understand, but
I can understand that. So I think that this is going to be a situation where it's going to be very hard, and I'm going to do my best. So the first thing is I'm not right. But I think that there's something about the way that you construct narratives. There's something about the way that you are objective, but other people are subjective. How do you know that you're not the subjective one and they're not the objective ones?
Bingo.
Here's my evidence, take it or leave it. And the reason why it ends up being, here's my evidence, here's how I feel people are, this is the objective fact of this, is because we've had tens of thousands of people bringing that up, and it's just turned into like a callus, if that makes sense.
I think it...
Yeah, but I think that in the beginning he was already kind of like, here it is, take it or leave it, or, you know, like he's saying that he's only just reached that point now, but I think in the beginning, it's been 100 days, guys, so, God, I'm kind of doing the memeing now, aren't I? He just says it so much in this video, I'm sorry. I know it is, that is quite a prolonged hate campaign, so, like, I'll give that to him, but, yeah. So it's not really funny, but Maybe a little bit. Just the way he presents it. Yeah, being very much like a here's my evidence, take it or leave it, like. Ugh. Yeah, his obsession with being like objective in his manner, I think rubs people the wrong way a lot. And you know, it's like he's being like, yeah, I'm objective. I look at the evidence, I formulate my opinions based on that, and he's going, listen, I'm not entirely responsible. My God, how long are we gonna talk about this? I can't believe it's been an hour already.
Makes a lot of sense. How are you feeling about this call, by the way? Like, is this okay?
This is fine.
Okay.
Yeah, no, this is fine.
So I think this is what you're. So here is what has contributed to the situation, which doesn't mean that you did something wrong. I don't think you're bad or anything like that. But I think that this tendency to walk away from your emotions and lean into logic, I don't think works very well. So I think, like, remember how we said that something that you're doing about the way that you respond to this is like triggering people harder. They're getting angrier and angrier and angrier. They're not letting up. Whereas like most content creators, people basically move on to trolling someone else. So anytime a content creator, you know, like reaches out to me and they're like, hey, I'm really struggling, I'm like, the best thing that you can do is wait till they move on, because the internet.
Yeah. And, you know, like they talk about this later in the video where Thor's like, I'm not going to do like a fucking like one paragraph and just talk about like, I'm sorry and that's it. That's idiocracy. I fucking hate that. He's like, no, that like fewer words, just say, oh, it was my fault and then that's it. He said he fucking hates that. And he thinks that that's like idiocracy or something. And I'm like, mate, over explaining what happened isn't going to change people's mind about you. Their impression and what they perceived is what they're going to have their opinions about. And you can't change their opinion about you, but you can get forgiveness. And my perspective is that he doesn't want to back down and just say, I'm sorry, because I don't think he thinks he realistically has anything to apologize for. And I think that's the mic drop. TBH.
Is an ugly mob, and this is the other thing that you're running into, which we haven't talked about. I do think that
like I never said that I was, but you'll see there's a number of people that are in there that are getting like banned for this shit right now. Is like they come in and they're like, did you know that he worked at Blizzard for 7 years? Like, yeah, that was my career, and I'm proud of that. So of course I'm going to talk about that because it gives context to talk about other things around the games industry, which is what we do on the stream.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes the things that I talk about in regards to those types of things is misconstrued as arrogance or boasting, when in reality I'm just trying to give context.
So that is the.
Yeah. Sometimes what I say is misconstrued as something else when in objective reality, this is actually how it is. It's like, dude, I can't even imagine like talking to someone like that where you can have an opinion on something and think like, oh, this person comes off this way, and they're like, actually, that's your falsified perspective based on like what you're seeing, and according to like Plato, what you see is not reality, and my objective reality based on my subjective experience actually pinpoints the fact that I'm actually not a dick. Shut up!
Problem right there. So I want you to listen to this phrase. Sure. This gets misconstrued as arrogance, but in reality, it's this. Yes. That is the most arrogant statement on the planet, bro. Like,
it's pretty funny. Look, I'm not gonna say you got cooked here. I really hope after this, Thor looks at this, and I really hope he gets a little bit more, I don't know.
Context, right? I think that there are moments where you can make statements like that, and it's funny. It's
yeah, so I think what makes this hard in your situation is that everything that you say is correct. I just think it's incomplete. So what I'm basically getting a sense of is that you tend to, since you move away from some of this like emotional energy, and you lean in. So the first thing that happens is once you suppress your like emotional circuitry, your emotions still influence your logic.
Okay.
There's no way to avoid it.
I think in times of deep stress, that gets more so.
100%. It gets very, very, very good, right? So it's not that the emotions stop. It's just that we start dissociating from them. Dissociation doesn't mean shut down. It means unaware.
Yeah. So when I went to therapy, what my therapist noted is that I'm able to talk about like really like traumatic and abusive stuff that happened to me, but I'm able to talk about it in a way that's very like, oh yeah, so this happened, that happened, and there's not much like emotion there. And so we found out in therapy that I was very dissociated from my feelings, and the connection between like my my body and my feelings was just not there entirely. And what I noticed in therapy is that whenever I would talk about my my problems or stuff that I went through, is that I would get a really, really stiff, like, sore neck. And at first I thought it was because the couch was the couch in that therapy office was really not that comfortable. But I actually noticed that as I started talking about it more, the knot kind of went away. And they also say in therapy, like, some people roll their eyes at what I'm saying now, but they say, like, when you touch the spot that sort of gets a little bit like sore, and recognize that the emotions are trying to come through, but your body is so used to, like, burying it that you get kind of tense from it. Instead, like, the emotions manifest in a different way. That's what I'm trying to say. And I'm saying that because if you are one of those people who thinks, like, I'm not an emotional person, I'm a logical and objective person, it's like, you cannot escape your emotions. The emotions are just a part of our physiology, bro. You cannot escape it. Embrace it.
And then what happens is the emotions will shape our logic. And it's not that they're illogical, it's that it becomes more selective.
Sure, I can see that. That makes sense.
And so I think what's going on is, like, the story that you tell me has what I would call missing reasons. So I know that's confusing. There's a great post about it that I think a therapist made many years ago. But sometimes when people tell stories and, like, bad things are happening to them, they are leaving out things that evoke the response of the other people. So when you tell a story that other people are just, like, crazy, and it's the internet, and it's parasocial, and people are reacting, there's something missing there. I don't think you can evoke... I mean, it's very possible that you are just incredibly...
Yeah, so it's one of those things where it's like, are we getting the full story? Like, I know you want to believe your friend who's like, oh, this bitch that I'm dating, like, she's totally fucking crazy, man. And it's like, yeah, you want to believe them, and you want to believe that their judgment is, like, correct and right, and they're a good person, but you also have to remember that the person telling you the story, you know, they're biased, they have their own objective reality, as we're continuing to talk about here, and, you know, she might be a crazy bitch, but then it's like, well, what's the missing stuff where, what made that all happen, or where is she coming from? Because people aren't generally just crazy for no reason. Generally.
Unlucky. I don't think that is a good attitude to take.
It's good to script you. No.
Yeah.
Alright, so then we have objective reality versus perception as reality.
And I know that perception is reality for the grand majority of situations. It has nothing to do with the objective reality of what is truth of the situation, what actually has occurred or anything like that. It's how do I feel about what occurred? And that's something I've always felt. And that's kind of like a big thing for me. Yeah.
Great. I love it. I agree with you 100%. And I would love to talk about that with you maybe today, or maybe on a different day, just about the philosophy side of it. But I think that my point is, so you're right. So, like, there's an objective reality, agree. And perception is not objective reality. So when you look at objective reality and you conclude that this is what really happened, where are we? Is that objective reality, or is that your perception?
That is my perception.
Very
100%.
good. Right.
When I talk about it, I think the disconnect is this. When I talk about something and I say it with, this is what happened, that's from my perspective. And I think maybe I'm not doing enough in terms of explaining this is from my perspective, this is how I feel about it, because I don't talk that way generally.
Yeah. That's not what you should be doing. So I think this is key point. This is exactly it. So I think this solution space seems hard for you to grasp. You shouldn't be further explaining yourself. You should be further trying to understand why people feel this way about you. Right? So this is not about what is objective.
And, you know, I'm gonna jump ahead here and say that there was actually a really good comment in the chat where Jessen said that you should remember to seek to understand more than to be understood. And you need to be curious about where people are coming from and, like, the people in your life. Like, what do they mean? What is their view? Because if you try to seek to understand other people more than you yourself being understood, then I think it comes off a lot better. If, like, again, Thor is seeking to be understood and for people to be like, oh, you know, you actually didn't have that much fault in the whole thing, so we're gonna back off now because we've come to our senses and we realize that in objective reality, you did technically do like the, I guess, correct thing. But I think even in this situation, I don't think you can really say objectively that he did the right thing, because I think in order to do that, you need to have been the bigger person. Like when someone starts saying, hey, like, why are you running? When the shot caller said to run, you just explain it, you know? But he saw that as an attack because, as we know, Thor sees things in reasonable attacks and unreasonable attacks. And so he responded to the unreasonable attack in a childish manner. So I would say that there wasn't really an objective correctness in the reality that we're living in today. Oh my god.
It is about what someone else's subjective perception of you is. And that will give you insight into how you are perceived, which in turn will give you an insight, an ability to bypass your own cognitive biases of your own perception.
Right, there's a lot of talking there, but basically, like, yeah, how do we know that we're being unbiased? We can't be unbiased. We're human beings with brains. Our brains try to protect us, and we have a lot of self-defense mechanisms. And that's what pisses me off so much with, like, how Thor talks, is that he talks about trying to be as objective as possible. Yes, of course, strive to be as objective and put in with reality as possible, but we have to recognize our own shortcomings. And I just wish that he would do that a little bit more. Like, I really want him to really address it and not just gloss over it and be like, yeah, I got a brain too, yeah, I got emotions too. Like, in my opinion, I think he does need to say more about that. He doesn't need to over-explain the situation. He just needs to recognize these things, because glossing over it makes it seem like you don't actually believe what you're saying. That's my opinion.
Is cut people as much slack as we can. And this is where a lot of people will say, oh, we cut them slack. No, you guys don't cut them slack. Like, we don't. Let's be honest. On the internet, when you feel judgmental towards someone, the most knee-jerk reaction is to not cut them any slack, but to dogpile them. That's what happens.
Yeah.
There's this very primitive human psychology thing of, like, when one bully is beating someone else up, we're going to get our kicks in, especially if it helps us feel good. Now, the problem, Thor, is that I think you are guilty of exactly the same thing. We all are. It's a human deficit.
Sure. Okay?
But you're guilty of it too, because I think what you say, hey, I was just smug, that's not how it felt to other people.
I think that was me dumbing it down to a flashpoint moment, not the full story.
Absolutely. So, and that's where you're screwing up, because you will dumb down your flaws to one word, but you will extrapolate and hypothesize other people's flaws to the nth degree.
Right. Yeah. That's an interesting part of it too, is to be like, yeah, okay, look, I fucked up. And then you're going, oh, but like this other dude who was like talking to me and blah, 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 blah. And then he's in some other drama. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, take notes, guys. Take friggin' notes. It's like there's some dude on YouTube who rates people's apologies, and Thor could probably learn a thing or two from him, because I don't even know if Thor's Twitter post even counts as an apology at this point. But yeah, and then Dr.K goes on to say, like, look, listen, one word about what you did wrong, and then like 99 other words about what other people did wrong, people will notice that and they will not receive it well. It's just is how it is. People pick up on that, whether you're not picking up on it or whatever, right? So here we're going to talk about the narcissistic defense that Dr. K mentions. Please don't clip it out of context and be like, he's a narcissist. Like, let's stop throwing the N-word around too much, guys. Come on.
That, like, we don't really control. Like, so if I'm talking to a narcissist, I think, so let me just take a step back, because I got to do a better job of this. So the first thing is that the narcissistic defense mechanism is something that all human beings employ. In yoga, it is called the ahamkara, or the ego. So like, we all, in order to function in life, it is very difficult for us to look at ourselves objectively. Now, what makes it harder to look at ourselves objectively is how much people attack us. So the more people attack us, the more our emotional and mental reaction is to defend. In the same way that if I was...
Yeah, and I've experienced this firsthand with my political videos, so I can say that this is quite accurate to the situation. So yeah, again, like, there's certain things that I really can't blame him for, and like, I think a lot of it comes down to human psychology, and one of the parting words that Thor had was that we as humans were not meant to have this level, like this degree of socializing. I was about to say socialism. We weren't meant to have this amount of socialism in the world, guys. But yeah, it's true. Like, posting a fucking video with like completely sane takes and then getting like insane people who are probably bots saying like the most deranged shit, yeah, it does something to your psychology, right? Right, this is gonna be an interesting point if it plays.
In the way that you communicate is that structure. Now, what makes this so confusing is that I'm not saying that that statement is factually incorrect. And if anyone who has dealt with other human beings knows this, you can tell another human being something that is factually correct, and they cannot give a damn and double down. In fact, that is usually what happens.
Yeah.
So what I'm sort of getting is like, this is the disconnect. I do wonder whether you are blind to, there's a certain kind of accountability that people are looking from you that you're not giving them. That doesn't mean...
What is it?
What is it? Guys, he genuinely doesn't know. And I'm not trying to say that to be condescending, but he doesn't know. And man, it could just be because, like, you know, he's in the situation, whereas like looking from it from like an outsider point of view, maybe it is easier to see. So like, let's cut him some slack with that, okay?
So this is what I'm digging into. So one is maybe it's in the way you're giving it. So it's not that I'm not saying you need to take more accountability, okay? I wasn't there. I don't know what happened. But my point is that when I see this pattern, and it could be just like, it's like a perceptual thing, because the way that you're talking is making people more upset, which doesn't mean that you're wrong. It's just like the way that I'm communicating is ineffective at resolving this issue. So a simple thing, and I'm not saying that you should do this, but I'm curious about this, is I've noticed that you tend to be incomplete. I've noticed that you tend to be complete with your answers. So when I look at...
Now, my sort of summary of this part was that Dr.K is kind of like, couldn't you just say I was smug and leave it at that? And then Thor was like, I fucking hate that, dude. I fucking hate that. Because Thor is complete with his answers. So Dr.K is kind of suggesting, like, what if you would just, like, use fewer words, and then if you're... yeah. Try not to give as much context. That's my interpretation of this.
That X thread, right? You try really hard and you do a great job. You're like, here's what happened, here's what happened, here's what happened, here's what happened, here's what happened. Have you ever tried to be incomplete with the smugness? Just talk about the smugness.
If I try to be incomplete with it?
Incomplete with the whole story and just focus on the smugness.
What does that mean?
Let me
like not give any context whatsoever? Yeah,
let's say yes to that. I think that's a bit of hyperbole, but
just an emotional response.
No, just say, hey guys. So basically, you know, when you tell the narrative, you start with like, I made a mistake. Everyone made mistakes. I was smug. And then there's a lot that comes after that. How would you feel about just ending it after that first paragraph?
I hate that.
Okay.
I have like an immediate emotionally angry response against that.
Very good.
Because it feels like idiocracy.
Okay.
It's like, why? Like, why do you have to add all this additional context to it? It's like, by this time, everyone's watched the fucking clip, everyone watched the video. What is more context going to do to resolve this situation? Like, I don't get it. And he sees it as idiocracy. It's idiotic to just say, look, I was smug, and that's it. Sorry. Sometimes it's nice having a simplistic thing, because as I was saying, a real apology doesn't involve me being like, oh yeah, well, I did this because, like, listen, I said you were a stupid bitch because I'm sorry I called you a stupid bitch, but I did it because you were being a kind of a hormonal bitch. You're being kind of mean, in my opinion. Like that's not an apology. Probably a bad example, but that's not apologizing. God.
It feels like that's too long, didn't read. I don't need all those words when few words do gooder. That I hate.
No, and you know what? Sometimes few words do gooder. That's not a bad thing. Sometimes you need to just take the L and say, I'm sorry.
I hate that shit. Like, I super hate that kind of communication of like, there's a lot of people who just say like, oh, you should just say my bad, guys. No, that does not in any way explain a situation. That doesn't tell you any information that is real. It is hand-waving for the masses in a way that is disingenuous to what happened and disingenuous to the people that are involved.
I don't see how it's disingenuous. My interpretation is that he doesn't see a reason to apologize. He doesn't see a reason to take accountability. I think his version of taking accountability was like, from my perspective, I did the right thing. Which is not taking accountability? Yeah. Even like acknowledging like, oh man, did I fuck up and like there's like something I could have done? Like after working at Blizzard for 7 years and I didn't think to do this thing or that thing. I don't know.
I feel like to do that would be just me lying for the sake of lying so that people would fuck off.
Anyway, so that is timestamp 2:07:59. If you want to keep watching that, you are more than welcome to. At 2:16, he says like, I look at it objectively based on my subjective experience. Which he was arguing up until this point that he strives for objectiveness and that most people just talk about like their perception. Mate, you just described perceptive experience and then tried to conflate it as being an objective reality. It's like, oh my god, it's so... Yeah, I don't think he really took in a lot of what Dr. K said. But I mean, that's fair. I mean, Dr. K was challenging him on a lot of stuff. Oh yeah, and then they were talking about the way that Thor puts things out makes people want to find the chink in his armor. Because, you know, armor's made of like chain links and they call them chinks or something. Oh my god. Why do they call it that? Why do they call it that? Oh fuck. But yeah, so Dr. K was just kind of roasting him, being like, the way you communicate makes people want to find like errors in your statements. Probably because he projects everything as like objective fact. When you do that, you gotta come with fucking receipts, and it better be actual objective reality. That's what I think.
I think you do that.
When the scenario is like super vitriolic, it's comfortable to sterilize it. It's comfortable to have like more of a logical conversation about it because it's easier to process.
Yep.
It is less easy to, like, if I'm going to have a big emotional response, I feel like I'm being manipulative to another person because I could do that. I could just sit down and be like, I'm going to have a big emotional response now, but that's not. Yeah, that's not how I am. That's not the person I am.
So I think it's an issue of. So you mentioned at some point that this has been a challenge that you've had before. I don't even remember what we were talking about. So I think it's really about, and this is for anyone else too, like, you know, we all just have to decide when you say this is the person that I am, we all just have to decide whether we want to continue. Like, am I just saying, hey, this is who I am and I don't want to change this? And then
No, I don't think that's the case.
Well, I'm giving options. So I'm sort of speaking rhetorically, right? So we all have to make decisions for ourselves about, if this is the way that I am, do I want to continue to be this way? Do I not want to continue to be this way? And then there's going to be a line in the sand of like what a level of compromise feels authentic and okay, and what doesn't. What feels like growth? What feels like giving a piece of yourself away?
Yeah, because like for me, I
think Dr. K is kind of saying something here, like, hey, look, listen, you have a choice. If apologizing and like actually just instead making posts from now on where it's like, here's my accountability, I'm sorry. Is that actual personal growth when it comes to communication, or is that just not being true to yourself? And you kind of have to decide that for yourself, because no one can really tell you to be that way. And I'm sure there's a lot of different variables for everyone's lives. I think for me, what's important in my life is that if I have an issue or someone has an issue with me, the first thing I do is I go, damn, okay, I hear you on that. Like, and I think we don't always necessarily agree when someone has like a problem. It can be, especially if you're not like curious. If you're not curious about understanding where they're coming from, it's a lot harder to actually listen to them and be like, nah, they're just saying this shit, and like, I feel like they're overreacting. It's like, of course you're going to feel like they're overreacting if you're not seeking to understand where they're coming from. And so what I wrote down here is that Thor intellectualizes his thoughts a lot, which is something I immediately recognize because I'm someone who has done it a lot. And being able to intellectualize your feelings and be like, okay, this thing's happening, this is how I felt, this is like what was going through my brain. That is that's not actually the same as processing and experiencing your feelings. It's an outward perspective, kind of seeing yourself in like the third person, and it's avoidant, I think. It's not healthy, so if you do that, fix that. Oh, and then there was another really interesting part at we went past it, didn't we? 2:41:19. Did we go past that? I think.
So I think it's an issue of, so you mentioned at some point that this has been a challenge that you've had before.
Oh wait, maybe
letting more of your authentic emotion out, and also be super careful about the way that you, even in your own head, sterilize your interactions and sterilize your contributions, which I think you do.
It's comfortable.
Yeah.
All right. He said something about like I wrote it down here verbatim. If I'm going to have a big emotional response, I feel like I'm being manipulative. Now, this is something I hear a lot from people where they're like, oh, well, if I'm going to have like a conflict with someone, I start like crying or something, that's like emotionally manipulative and stuff. And I think that comes a lot from childhood, where we probably grew up with like parents who genuinely did see us having like emotional responses to things as manipulation, because obviously if you're like a parent, generally speaking, parents are going to see their crying child and feel fucking awful about it, because it's like, fuck, I made my kid cry because I didn't buy them a fucking Kit Kat at the store. And then the parent feels as though that's manipulative, when in reality it's the child just having an emotional response to something they don't understand, because they don't understand the feelings in their body. And we grow up as adults, and we grow into these adult people who are so emotionally constipated because of what we learned as children. And I think that this thing that Thor is saying, I think it's exhibiting a lot of his internal processing in a very like vulnerable way, because I feel like that says so much about it all, to think that you have a big emotional response, and I don't think he realizes that the response he's been having is an emotional response. It's just a different type of one. Writing like 2 different like whole fucking paragraph fucking essays on Twitter, that's an emotional response, no matter what way you put it. It's yeah. Oh, I think we're actually at the end here. So someone else said a really interesting thing. Tranquil said, I hope Thor finds a way to manage his lack of emotional connection to his words and realize it isn't authentic. And yeah, I agree with that. I think that there is a way that he is coming off that doesn't feel authentic. And, you know, we're in this age of social media where authenticity is kind of like something that people value. I think we had this phase of content creators who were like very facade-y and stuff, and then you want people who are a little bit more down to earth, I guess. Yeah, I'm one of the you guys or something. And then it's something that I thought, and you can say like maybe my take's wrong here, but if you deem emotions as being like immature, unreasonable, manipulative, then when you are having a conversation with someone and they come across as emotional at all, you're not going to take what they're saying seriously, because you're just going to roll your eyes and be like dismissive, because, oh, well, I've made up my mind, they're being emotional, so they're either trying to be manipulative, they're mature, or they're just being unreasonable. And so you got to be really fucking careful about viewing emotions this way, because it's just not fucking healthy. And we're seeing it here too, and a lot of people in the comments are saying that they relate a lot to Thor and the way that he is. And I just say that if you relate to Thor, that's fine. I mean, like, you're not a bad person. Everyone has different ways of sort of growing up and learning about these things and how you interact with the world and yourself. And you know, I think especially for men too, they get kind of the short end of the stick when it comes to like emotion and feeling, I would say, and it's a pretty big part of being human. But unfortunately, like, people like Thor have not been exposed to the healthier side of things, I guess. So I think that's kind of where their video ends with Thor and him. They start talking about non-profits and shit, but that's basically the video. Yeah, I would of course encourage you to watch it in full. Those were my timestamps. And I thought it was a really interesting video. I liked it. I really enjoyed listening to Dr.K talk, and you know, it is what it is at the end of the day. And guys, don't send any hate to that guy. I mean, I don't expect you to anyway, but can we kind of relent a little bit on this whole situation and like fucking just whatever? Would we like to see him give a heartfelt apology? I mean, I guess. I personally don't care about the situation, if I'm being honest. I think that it was interesting, but let's draw the line at something, right? Like death threats and shit. Like let's call it there, right, guys? Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna go now. It went way over time, my god, but I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you go give Dr.K some support. HealthyGamerGG, and I will see you guys next week. So take care, look after yourselves, apologize to your loved one if you need to, and learn to take accountability. All right, bye.